So welcome everybody to today's edition of CESI Talks. Today I have the particular honor to welcome Dragoș Pislaru from Romania. He's member of the European Parliament, member of the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, member of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs, coordinator for Renew Group, outstanding academic and political person, if I may say so. Welcome, Mr. Pislaru.
Thank you very much for the invite, for having me, and I'm delighted to be part of these CESI Talks.
We spoke, I think, almost half a year ago, and it was about the Porto Social Summit, about the action plan. What do you think has moved since then?
I believe that on EPRS, we have several new items that we were quite expected. We have the minimum wage file, we have the pay transparency file, we have the strategy for the children's rights, and then the guarantee as well, child guarantee. And we are preparing quite a new range of proposals. I mean, we are preparing things related to skills in education, for instance, quality traineeships. It's actually an initiative that the Parliament is putting forward. Micro-credentials have actually been announced for perhaps next year. And we have, quite a few things related to, let's say, coordination of social security and other things that will actually help mobility and workers that are either seasonal or cross-border. So I think that we can be quite happy with some new items on the agenda.
Mr. Pislaru, you have been, if I'm well informed, the co-rapporteur for one of the files concerning the Recovery and Resilience Facility. You expressed also at an event a couple of days ago, you're particularly honored to have had this dossiers in your hand. How could this RRF, as we call it, how could this part of the EU recovery plan of the Next Generation EU support the implementation of a social contract?
Yeah, I think that this is quite relevant for this idea of renewing the social contract in Europe. There was, if you remember, the initial version of the Recovery and Resilience Facility was focused on the dual transformation, the digital transition, and the green transition and the digital transformation, and on a broader thing called resilience. And it was actually our duty and mission in the European Parliament to reflect on a more balanced approach, including two important pillars: the social and territorial cohesion, and a particular pillar that I'm very proud of, and was somehow my initiative as well, the pillar on children and youth. And why I'm saying that? Because the whole point was defined at the beginning as being, investment and reforms, if we all remember, and we see it right now in the regulation. And it was quite an important debate that was a little bit below the radar, I would say. Somehow, how do you define social investment? So one of the discussions that we had during the negotiation was, this is about investment, and you want to put a social pillar there. But then, what is social investment? And it was quite a big debate about the idea that social investment is seen more or less like a brick and mortar stuff, like, for instance, putting investment into schools or hospitals or nurseries or things like that. But I think that there is a shift in paradigm right now, because I think social policies require large-scale projects that require long-term financial support. We are not talking only about the social benefits. We are talking about services, active labor market policies, health and education policies, measures that are dedicated to vulnerable groups. So I would actually say that it's really important to notice that both in the multi-annual financial framework 2021 to 2027, and right now in the Next Generation EU, as it's called, we have a plethora of instruments. And I think that right now we have still this reactive view from the member states that are usually putting short-term measures, rather focusing on the social measures on a short term with reactive spending. And there is this link that social policies are about spending. So what I wanted to do through the RRF negotiation, and I think that with the entire European Parliament team, we've been successful to that, is that we have actually pushed the fact that EU is a turning point right now, where we need to focus on the prevention part. So that means that we need to pass from reactive spending to prevention investment. And then by saying that, this means that you can look at the vulnerable categories, how to get them on board, how to create access and opportunity. If you look at children and youth, this will be vital to ensure that they will not become, needs later on in their activity, or adults that would be, disgruntled about how the state and the policy, generally speaking, are provided. So I would say that the view that we put in the RRF, the focus on social, children, youth, and the focus on prevention investment is something that will foster both nominal and real convergence. And these kind of investments in skilling, upskilling, reskilling, in services, these are very important for our future. And one last thing, there is right now a direct link through social impact investment, which is kind of very, very important as well. So obviously in the RRF, we talk mostly about the public sector, but I think that it's also important to notice the fact that there is room for maneuver from financial instruments, and with the support of the European Investment Bank and InvestEU, to actually complement each other and come up with a creative way to push for the concept of social investment, social impact investment in Europe, generally speaking. So that's the bottom line of it. The most important part, the Recovery and Resilience Facility is actually built on this new model, and it's actually a tool for you to power, up these kind of social policies, the new types of social policies. 672.5 billion euros. It's a big amount, and we have more than 30% allocated to social actions, as it is, presented in a report of the European Commission. And I would really, like to see, the avant-garde of social policies included in the RRF. So that's why I think that the RRF is at the cornerstone of renewing this EU social contract. Obviously, it will be the member states who will implement that and will have the option of delivering.
Yeah, we're particularly happy. I was just mentioning the conference 2 or 3 days ago that a strong point has been made on investment in general. And I think also from our side, we're less and less, let's say, fundamental on the question whether this is a public investment or investment coming from elsewhere. But that it is so clearly that it has been put on the user agenda is a bit pushed, of course, or strongly pushed by the whole COVID-19 pandemics. But we are, I have to say, trade unions, we're very often not happy with things, and sometimes difficult to say something nice, but we appreciate this shift of paradigm which you mentioned. But you said something very important also some days ago, and you spoke now again also social contract. And I remember that you said social contract is not only a thing which is a left-wing perspective. And you're an MEP from Renew, so from the Liberals, and today is World Day for Decent Work. What do you think is a social partners and trade unions' role in promoting decent work? And why do you think that the protection of workers, or let's say the social contract, is not something which is some classical left, but which concerns everyone and everybody, among them, of course, also the Liberals?
Yeah, I do believe that we should not, look at social policies from a doctrinary standpoint anymore. I don't think that we should create stereotypes. Everything that is social is left. I believe that right now, especially given the pandemics, we've seen how important it is to take care of the ones that are most vulnerable. I think that we discovered a lot community actions and solidarity actions together. And I think that when we talk about social policies, obviously you talk about how to be sure that you are not leaving people behind and safety nets and so on. But at the same time, and this is why as a liberal I can easily support that, we are talking about access and opportunity. It's about allowing people to have an independent living on their own. And this is something that we cherish very much. If we look at the rights theory in terms of being able to have an independent life. That's something very important. So for me, it's quite important to look both at the issues related to safety nets and helping people that cannot for objective reasons manage on their own, but on the other hand, to be sure that at all time you are not just keeping them in a Stockholm syndrome dependent on the public service, but you are actually going to try to help them on their own. So that means is the old parable with the fishing rod and the fish. I would like to learn people how to fish instead of giving them fish. And I believe that this is something that we can actually do together. I see no problem whatsoever in the discussions that we have both with the EPP in the parliament and the SND at the same time, and we can have a common denominator quite easily when it comes to access and opportunity and investment. And I think that this common denominator can be the basis for a renewed social contract, where we are not just going to have a fight in between trade unions and employers, but more or less a realization there is a common interest actually to build together. So that's the advantage of being a centrist political group, that we can actually work well with both left and right, and we can bring them together at the table. So that's why I think that Renew Europe may have a very good role to play in ensuring that we are going to have an economy that works for the people. If you remember, how Ursula von der Leyen put that in the program. So and it's this Sozialmarktwirtschaft concept that we have in Germany as well. And then I think that this is basically the European model that we are talking about. And then again, I'm well placed, let's say, to comment about that. And I will always see trade unions as a partner, as long, obviously, as there will be a common interest for taking care about the citizens and ensuring their independence and being sure that this is an active thing that we are doing.
Yeah, I also believe that bringing that forward, not least social contract, can also be somewhat a competitive advantage also for Europe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Mr. Pislaru, I thank you very much. I hope our ways will cross soon in person at the European Parliament, and I look forward to the continuation of this, to my mind, great cooperation.
Again, thank you very much for the invite. I'm really glad that we can celebrate through this talk, the World Day for Decent Work. I really believe that in-work poverty should actually become just a sad memory in the past, and I really would like to see more and more opportunities at European level, with a vibrant industry and economy on one hand, at the same time with people that are really cherishing their way of living and can actually contribute to the European dream. So thank you again, and I will always be quite thrilled to stay in touch with you. Thank you.